The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between star systems. It was bigger than most cities, with gleaming metal walls and bright lights that could be seen from millions of miles away. Today it would host the most important meeting in galactic history. At least that's what the Galactic Council believed. Inside the grand meeting hall, representatives from 12 different alien species took their places. The room was enormous, with curved walls that rose high above like a great bowl. Each species had their own section, designed to match their needs. The crystalline Zephyrians sat on platforms that let their bodies catch and reflect light in brilliant patterns. The gas-like ethereals floated in special containers filled with their preferred atmosphere. The insect-like klaxons perched on metal frames that supported their multiple legs. All of them were here for one purpose: to force humanity to surrender. High Counselor Vextar of the Zephyrian stood at the center of the room. His crystal body pulsed with confident blue light as he looked around at his allies. For 200 years, the Galactic Council had kept peace among the stars. They decided which species could expand to new worlds. They controlled trade routes and technology sharing. They were the law in this part of the galaxy, but humanity had become a problem. The humans had appeared in space only 3 centuries ago. At first, they seemed harmless enough. They traded fairly, shared some of their technology, and followed most galactic customs. But they grew too fast. They built too many ships. They settled too many worlds. Worst of all, they refused to accept the limits that other species accepted without question. The humans must be taught their place, Vextar had told the Council months earlier. They are young and foolish. They think they can ignore our authority. The other council members had agreed. The aquatic depth swimmers spoke of human colonies spreading like a virus. The plant-like grove tenders complained that humans changed planets too quickly, without proper respect for existing ecosystems. Even the peaceful sky dancers admitted that human expansion threatened the careful balance of galactic civilization. So the Council had decided to act. They would present humanity with terms that no reasonable species could refuse. The humans would have to accept limits on their growth, or face the combined might of 12 advanced civilizations. The great doors of the meeting hall opened with a deep rumble. The room fell silent as the human delegation entered. Every alien eye, sensor, or detection organ focused on the 3 figures walking across the polished floor. Admiral Sarah Chen led the group. She was a small woman by human standards, but she walked with the confidence of someone who had commanded starships in battle. Her plain blue uniform bore no decorations except for simple rank insignia. Behind her came Diplomat Marcus Rivera, a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. The third human was Dr. Elena Vasquez, a scientist whose reputation for brilliance was known even among alien researchers. That was it. 3 humans to face the combined authority of the Galactic Council. The aliens whispered among themselves in their various languages. Some made sounds like wind chimes. Others clicked or buzzed. The ethereals communicated through changes in their gas patterns that created soft, whooshing sounds. "Where is the rest of their delegation?" asked Counselor Thrum of the Grove Tenders, his bark-like skin rustling with confusion. "Perhaps they could not afford to send more," suggested a sky dancer, her feathered wings fluttering with what might have been amusement. High Counselor Vextar called for order. His crystal form brightened until it cast sharp shadows across the room. "We welcome the human delegation to Nexus Prime," he announced, his voice carried by sonic amplifiers to every corner of the hall. "You have come to hear the will of the Galactic Council." Admiral Chen stopped in the center of the room. She looked up at the towering alien representatives surrounding her, but showed no sign of fear or nervousness. "We are here to listen," she said simply. For the next 3 days, the Council presented their demands. They spoke of humanity's crimes against galactic order. They listed every human colony that had been established without proper Council approval. They complained about human technology that advanced too quickly without oversight. They accused humans of being too aggressive, too ambitious, too unwilling to accept their proper place as junior members of galactic society. Vextar's crystal body pulsed with different colors as he spoke. "Humanity has grown beyond acceptable limits," he declared. "Your species shows dangerous tendencies toward expansion and independence. This cannot be allowed to continue." The demands were harsh but clear. Humanity would surrender their outer colonies to Council control. They would accept limits on their military forces. They would submit all new technology to Council review before it could be used. They would pay massive compensation for what the Council called illegal expansion. Most importantly, they would accept permanent Council observers who would ensure humanity never again threatened galactic stability. "These terms are generous," announced Counselor Whisper of Distant Stars. The ethereal representative, its gaseous form swirled in patterns that other species had learned meant certainty. "We could simply declare humanity an enemy of galactic peace. The consequences would be far worse." Other Council members voiced their agreement. The klaxons clicked their approval in rapid bursts. The depth swimmers made low humming sounds that vibrated through the station's water-filled communication channels. Everyone seemed confident that humanity would have no choice but to accept. Throughout all of this, the three humans sat quietly. They took notes. They asked occasional questions about details, but they showed no emotion, no sign of fear or anger or desperation. To the aliens, this seemed like the behavior of a defeated people who knew they had no alternatives. Admiral Chen finally stood up. The massive room fell silent as hundreds of alien beings waited to hear humanity's surrender. "We have listened to your terms," Chen said. Her voice was calm and steady. "We have considered your demands carefully." Vextar's crystal body brightened with satisfaction. "Then you accept the wisdom of the Council's decision?" Chen looked directly at the High Counselor. When she spoke, her words were simple and clear. "No, we reject every single one of your terms." The reaction was immediate and explosive. Alien voices erupted in shock and outrage. The klaxons' clicking became a thunderous noise like machinery breaking down. The grove tender's leaves rustled so violently it sounded like a forest in a hurricane. Even the usually calm ethereals swirled in patterns that spoke of complete disbelief. "This is impossible." Vextar's crystal form flashed bright red with anger. "You cannot refuse the will of the Council. You are one young species against 12 ancient civilizations." Chen waited for the noise to die down. When she spoke again, her voice cut through the alien protest like a knife. "You have made your choice and we have made ours. You believe you can force us to kneel. You believe we have no options except surrender." She turned slowly, looking up at each section of alien representatives. "You are wrong. About humanity, about our capabilities, about what we will and will not accept." Diplomat Rivera stood up beside her. "The human government instructed us to make one thing perfectly clear," he said. "We came here hoping for a fair agreement between equals. Instead, you have offered us slavery with fancy words." Dr. Vasquez was the last to stand. Her voice was quiet, but somehow every being in the room could hear her clearly. "You have made a mistake that will cost you more than you can imagine." Vexitar's crystal body blazed with fury. "Then you choose war. You choose to face the combined might of the Galactic Council." Admiral Chen shook her head. "No, Counselor. You have chosen war. We are simply going home to prepare for it." The three humans turned and walked toward the great doors. Their footsteps echoed in the suddenly silent hall. Every alien being watched them go, many still unable to believe what they had just witnessed. As the doors closed behind the human delegation, High Counselor Vextar's voice boomed across the chamber. "So be it. Let them return to their little worlds and count their few ships. They will learn the price of defying the Council." But in the silence that followed, a few of the wiser Council members began to wonder if they had just made the greatest mistake in galactic history. The humans had shown no fear, no desperation, no sign that they believed themselves to be facing impossible odds. They had acted like people who knew something the Council did not. The news of humanity's rejection spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within hours, every major news network was broadcasting the story. Most alien commentators expressed shock that such a young species would dare to defy the Galactic Council. Many predicted that humanity would change its mind within days once they realized the hopelessness of their situation. They were wrong about everything. The first sign that something unusual was happening came 3 days after the failed peace talks. A Zephyrian trade convoy arrived at the human colony of New Geneva, expecting to conduct their usual business. The massive crystal ships had been trading with New Geneva for over 50 years, exchanging rare minerals for human agricultural products and manufactured goods. But when they arrived, they found the orbital stations empty and dark. Captain Clickstar, commanding the lead crystal ship, tried to contact the station authorities. After several attempts, a human voice finally answered his call. "This is New Geneva Control," the voice said politely. "We regret to inform you that this system is now closed to all non-human traffic. Please alter your course and depart immediately." Clickstar's crystal body flashed with confusion. "Closed? What do you mean closed? We have trade agreements. We have been partners for decades. All trade agreements with non-human entities have been suspended indefinitely," the human voice replied. "We apologize for any inconvenience. Have a safe journey." The communication ended. No matter how many times Clickstar tried to re-establish contact, no one answered. Confused and angry, the Zephyrian captain had no choice but to order his convoy to leave. The same thing happened at every human system. Trade convoys that had visited human worlds for generations found themselves turned away at the borders. Human merchant ships that had been common sights in alien ports simply vanished from space lanes across the galaxy. Diplomatic communications to human embassies went unanswered. Within 2 weeks, every human embassy in alien space had been evacuated. Human diplomats, traders, students, and tourists all received the same message: return to human space immediately. Most complied without question, though a few tried to stay in alien territories. They found their human citizenship revoked and their access to human banks and communication networks cut off. It was as if humanity had simply decided to stop being part of galactic civilization. On Earth, Admiral Chen stood before the largest gathering of human leaders in history. The Great Assembly Hall in Geneva held representatives from every human world and colony. The session was broadcast live across human space, reaching over 200 billion people on 300 worlds. "My fellow humans," Chen began, her voice carrying to every corner of human civilization. "For 3 centuries we have been part of the galactic community. We have traded honestly, shared our knowledge, and respected alien customs. We have followed their rules even when those rules made no sense for us." The camera showed faces in the audience: colonial governors who had spent their lives building new worlds, fleet admirals who had protected human shipping lanes, scientists whose discoveries had benefited all species, business leaders who had created prosperity across dozens of star systems. "We asked for nothing more than the right to grow and prosper like any other species," Chen continued. "We wanted to be partners, not subjects. We hoped to find friends among the stars." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "Instead, the Galactic Council has decided that humanity must be controlled. They believe we are too young, too aggressive, too dangerous to be allowed freedom. They want to chain us down and keep us weak." A murmur went through the assembly. On some worlds, crowds had gathered in public squares to watch the broadcast. The reaction was the same everywhere: anger, determination, and something else. Something that made alien observers nervous. "Today we reject their chains," Chen declared. "Today we choose to stand alone rather than kneel with company. If the galaxy will not accept us as equals, then we will show them what humanity is truly capable of." Behind the scenes, the real work was already beginning. Dr. Elena Vasquez had returned to Earth and immediately disappeared into the classified levels of the Global Research Command. The project she was overseeing had been kept secret for over a century, known only to the highest levels of human government. In shipyards across human space, civilian manufacturing facilities began rapid conversion to military production. The process was smooth and fast, as if it had been planned long ago. Workers who had been building cargo ships and passenger liners found themselves assembling warships and weapons systems. But these were not the same designs that alien intelligence networks had observed over the years. These ships were larger, more advanced, and incorporated technologies that no alien scientist had ever seen in human hands. Fleet Admiral Rodriguez, commander of the Sol Defense Force, held his own briefing for military leaders. The session was classified at the highest levels, but the basic message soon spread through the ranks. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for generations. "The Council thinks they know our capabilities," Rodriguez told his admirals. "They have observed our merchant fleets and patrol ships. They believe they understand our technology and our numbers." He activated a holographic display that showed star charts of human space. Red dots marked military installations, blue dots showed industrial centers, and green dots indicated research facilities. There were thousands of each, many in locations that alien intelligence had never discovered. "What they have seen is what we wanted them to see," Rodriguez continued. "Our real strength has been hidden. Our most advanced technologies have been kept in reserve. Our true military capacity has been disguised as civilian infrastructure. The display changed, showing shipyard facilities that were 10 times larger than anything the Council suspected. Manufacturing centers that could produce materials unknown to galactic science. Research stations where human scientists had been working on projects that would revolutionize warfare itself. We hoped never to need these preparations, Rodriguez admitted. We built them as insurance against a day we prayed would never come. But the Council has forced our hand. On the industrial world of New Pittsburgh, factory complexes that had been producing mining equipment and agricultural machinery shut down for exactly 6 hours. When they reopened, they were manufacturing weapon systems and military supplies. The transition was so smooth that many workers didn't even realize what had happened until they saw the finished products rolling off the assembly lines. Similar transformations took place on hundreds of worlds. Research universities revealed hidden departments that had been working on classified projects. Civilian space stations deployed military-grade sensors and defensive systems that had been installed years earlier but never activated. The speed and scale of the mobilization surprised even some human leaders. It became clear that the preparations for this moment went deeper than most people had realized. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, alien governments began to notice the economic effects of humanity's withdrawal. The Ethereals discovered that their atmospheric processing industry depended heavily on human-manufactured equipment. The Grove Tenders found that their agricultural exports had lost their largest market. Even the mighty Zephyrians realized that their crystal-growing techniques had been improved by human innovations that were no longer available. Trade routes that had operated for decades were suddenly empty. Spaceports that had bustled with activity became quiet as human merchants and transport ships vanished. Alien businesses that had built their success on human partnerships found themselves struggling to survive. But it was the reports from alien intelligence services that truly worried government leaders. Every major alien power had maintained spy networks in human space, carefully monitoring human activities and capabilities. These networks had operated successfully for decades, providing detailed information about human technology, military strength, and political decisions. Now suddenly, they had all gone silent. Intelligence officers who had worked undercover in human societies for years simply vanished. Surveillance satellites in human systems stopped transmitting. Even automated monitoring devices that had been secretly placed on human shipping routes went offline. Simultaneously, it was as if humanity had known exactly where every alien spy and surveillance device was located and had eliminated them all at once. The implications were terrifying. If humans had been aware of alien intelligence operations all along, what else did they know? What other secrets had they been keeping? As the weeks passed and the silence from human space continued, a new reality began to dawn on alien leaders. They had not been dealing with a naive young species that could be easily controlled. They had been dealing with humans who were far more prepared, far more capable, and far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. 6 months had passed since the humans walked out of the peace talks. The silence from human space was becoming more unsettling with each passing day. What had started as confident predictions of human surrender had turned into growing anxiety among the Galactic Council members. High Counselor Vextar stood in his private chambers aboard the Council flagship, staring out at the stars. His crystal body, normally bright with confidence, had dimmed to a worried blue-gray. The reports on his desk made for disturbing reading. The economic damage was worse than anyone had predicted. 3 major alien corporations had already gone bankrupt without access to human markets. The Ethereal Confederation was facing food shortages because their atmospheric farms had relied on human-designed equipment that was no longer being maintained. Even the proud Zephyrians were having problems with their mining operations, which had used human-built extraction tools for decades. But it was more than just economics. Strange reports were coming in from across the galaxy, and they all pointed to the same uncomfortable conclusion. The Council had seriously underestimated humanity. A soft chime indicated that someone was requesting entry to his chambers. "Come in," Vextar said, his voice creating harmonic vibrations in the crystal walls. Admiral Clickstar entered, the same captain who had been turned away from New Geneva months earlier. His crystal form was flickering with patterns that indicated extreme stress. "Hi, Counselor," Clickstar began. "We have received the intelligence reports you requested. I think you need to see them immediately." Vextar activated his personal holographic display. The first report was from the Klaxon Intelligence Service, considered one of the most thorough in the galaxy. Their insectoid agents had been trying to penetrate human space for months with disturbing results. "Every single one of our operatives has been discovered and expelled," the report stated. Some were agents who had maintained cover identities in human space for over 20 years. The humans not only found them all, but they had detailed files on each operative's activities, contacts, and methods. The next report was even more troubling. The depth swimmers, whose aquatic nature allowed them to hide in the water systems of most space stations, had been the Council's primary source of intelligence on human activities. Their report was brief and chilling. "All assets in human space have been neutralized. Recommend immediate reassessment of human intelligence capabilities. Previous estimates appear to have been catastrophically wrong." But it was the report from the Grove tenders that truly shocked Vextar. Their plant-based intelligence network had been considered undetectable, using modified seeds and spores that could monitor activities on any world with a suitable atmosphere. "Impossible as it seems," their report read. "The humans appear to have identified and removed every single one of our biological monitoring systems. Some had been in place for over a century. We can only conclude that human detection capabilities far exceed our previous assessments." Clickstar waited while Vextar absorbed the implications of the reports. "There's more, High Counselor. We've detected massive industrial activity throughout human space. Whatever they're building, it's on a scale we've never seen before." "Show me," Vextar commanded. The display changed to show long-range sensor readings from the borders of human space. The data was fragmentary, but the patterns were clear. Energy signatures indicated manufacturing operations that dwarfed anything in the known galaxy. Material movement suggested construction projects involving entire star systems. Most disturbing of all were the gravity anomalies. Several human systems were showing gravitational fluctuations that suggested the presence of massive objects that weren't there 6 months ago. Objects so large they were affecting the orbital mechanics of entire solar systems. "What are they building?" Vextar whispered, his crystal form flickering with confused patterns. "We don't know," Clickstar admitted. "Our scouts can't get close enough to investigate. The humans have established a perimeter around their space that our ships cannot penetrate." "Impossible. Our stealth technology is the best in the galaxy." "Not anymore, apparently. 3 different species have tried to send reconnaissance missions into human space. All were detected and intercepted before they could gather any useful intelligence. The humans aren't just finding our ships, they're finding them while they're still cloaked and running silent." Vextar's crystal body dimmed further. This was far worse than he had imagined. The Council had based their entire strategy on the assumption that they understood human capabilities. If these reports were accurate, they had been operating on completely false information. "Call an emergency session of the full Council," he ordered. "Every member, every intelligence chief, every military commander. We need to reassess our entire approach to the human situation." The emergency session convened 12 hours later in the same grand chamber where the peace talks had failed. But the mood was completely different now. Where there had once been confidence and certainty, there was now worry and confusion. Counselor whisper of distant stars swirled through its containment field, patterns of concern rippling through its gaseous form. "The economic disruption is spreading faster than we anticipated," it reported. 7 more member species are requesting emergency aid to deal with the loss of human trade. The Grove Tender representative, Counselor Deeproot, rustled his bark-like skin nervously. "Our agricultural worlds are struggling without human biotechnology. Crop yields are down 30% across our entire confederation." But it was the report from Intelligence Coordinator Skitter of Metal that truly alarmed the Assembly. The veteran Klaxon had spent 50 years building intelligence networks across the galaxy. His reputation for thorough, accurate information was legendary. "Fellow counselors," he began, his multiple voice boxes creating a complex harmony of worry. "We have been operating under false assumptions about human capabilities. Our intelligence estimates were not merely incomplete. They appear to have been deliberately manipulated." The chamber erupted in surprised sounds from a dozen different species. Skitter of Metal waited for quiet before continuing. For over 2 centuries, humans have maintained what we believe to be transparent and open societies. Our agents operated freely in their space. Our monitoring systems gathered detailed information about their activities. We thought we understood their technology, their military capacity, and their industrial capabilities. He activated a holographic display showing comparative charts. We now believe that everything we observed was carefully controlled. The humans showed us exactly what they wanted us to see, while hiding their true capabilities. The evidence was overwhelming. Human shipyards that the Council believed could produce 50 vessels per year were actually building 500. Research facilities that appeared to be working on peaceful projects were developing weapons technology, decades ahead of anything the Council possessed. Military bases that seemed to house a few thousand troops were actually major installations, with hundreds of thousands of personnel. How is this possible? Demanded Counselor Reef Singer of the Depth Swimmers, her aquatic voice bubbling with disbelief. Our intelligence networks are the most sophisticated in the galaxy. That's exactly the problem, Skitter of Metal replied grimly. We became overconfident in our abilities. We assumed that a young species like humanity couldn't possibly deceive us. We never considered that they might be deliberately feeding us false information. The most shocking revelation came from Dr. Coral Mind, the Council's chief technology assessor. Her species, the crystalline builders, were considered the galaxy's foremost experts on advanced technology. We have analyzed the fragmentary data from human space, she reported, her crystal form pulsing with patterns of amazement and fear. The humans appear to have developed technologies that we considered impossible. Gravitational manipulation, matter-energy conversion at efficiencies that violate known physics, faster-than-light communication systems that work across galactic distances. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. If the humans had such advanced technology, why had they hidden it? Why had they pretended to be a minor power struggling to keep up with galactic civilization? Vextar's voice cut through the silence. How long have they been preparing for this confrontation? Skitter of Metal consulted his data files. Based on the scale of their hidden infrastructure, we estimate they began serious preparations at least 150 years ago. Possibly longer. 150 years? Vextar's crystal form blazed with shocked red light. But that was long before any conflicts with the Council. That was when they were still grateful for our guidance and protection. Exactly, Skitter of Metal replied. It appears that humanity never trusted the Council's intentions. They have been preparing for this confrontation since almost the beginning of their participation in galactic civilization. The horrible truth was becoming clear. Humanity had not stumbled into this conflict unprepared. They had been planning for it for generations, carefully building their strength while maintaining the appearance of weakness. They had studied the Council's methods, learned their weaknesses, and prepared countermeasures for every possible scenario. Counselor Vextar looked around the chamber at his fellow leaders. The demonstration began at exactly 1200 hours Galactic Standard Time in the Kepler 442 system. The Council had chosen this location as the staging area for their planned invasion of human space. It was perfect for their purposes, far from major trade routes with no inhabited worlds, and positioned at the edge of human territory. Admiral Skitter of Metal commanded the Council fleet from his flagship, the Klaxon vessel, Chittering Victory. Around him, 46 other ships from 11 different species waited in formation. It was the largest military force the Council had assembled in over a century, representing nearly a third of their combined naval power. The plan was simple. They would establish a forward base in Kepler 442, then begin systematic raids on human border worlds. Eventually, humanity would be forced to surrender or face the complete destruction of their civilization. Skitter of Metal was confident in his strategy. His intelligence reports indicated that humanity possessed perhaps 60 military vessels of significant size, along with various patrol ships and system defense platforms. The Council fleet alone could handle twice that number, and this was just the advance force. All ships report ready for system entry, announced his communications officer, a young Klaxon whose clicking voice indicated excitement for his first major military operation. Proceed with jump sequence, Skitter of Metal ordered. Maintain formation and prepare for immediate combat deployment upon arrival. The Council fleet activated their faster-than-light drives simultaneously, space warping around them as they made the jump to Kepler 442. The journey took only seconds, reality blurring and reforming as they dropped back into normal space. What they found waiting for them made no sense. "Sir." The sensor officer's voice was filled with confusion. "I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the system. Multiple large objects in formation around the primary star." "Impossible," Skitter of Metal clicked. "This system was empty when we scouted it last month." "Show me." The main display activated, showing the tactical situation. At first, Skitter of Metal thought there was an error in the sensors. The readings indicated over 300 ships in the system, arranged in perfect formations that spoke of military discipline and advanced coordination. But these were not the ships that Council intelligence had observed in human space. These vessels were massive, sleek, and clearly built for war. The smallest was larger than his own flagship. The largest was bigger than anything the Council had ever constructed. "Communications incoming," reported the sensor officer. "It's coming from the largest human vessel. They're requesting to speak with the fleet commander." Skitter of Metals. Compound eyes focused on the main screen as it filled with the image of Admiral Sarah Chen. She sat in what was obviously a military command center, surrounded by displays and personnel that spoke of advanced technology and professional competence. "Admiral Skitter of Metal," Chen said, her voice calm and professional. "Welcome to Kepler 442. I am Admiral Chen of the United Earth Space Force. I believe you were expecting to find this system empty." "Where did you come from?" Skitter of Metal demanded, his voice clicking with rapid confusion. "Our scouts reported no human activity in this region." Chen smiled, though there was no warmth in the expression. "Your scouts saw exactly what we wanted them to see. We've been monitoring your fleet movements for weeks. We knew you would come here." The Klaxon Admiral felt his confidence beginning to crack. "You cannot have more than a few dozen military vessels in your entire fleet." "Where did these ships come from?" "That's an interesting question," Chen replied. "Let me show you something that might help explain." The display changed to show a tactical overview of the entire system. Red dots marked the positions of Council ships while blue dots showed human vessels. There were 6 blue dots for every red one, and more were appearing on the sensors every minute. "For 300 years, Chen continued, humanity has been building our true strength while showing you only what we wanted you to see. Every merchant ship you observed had defensive capabilities you never suspected. Every civilian shipyard was also a military construction facility. Every research station was developing technologies that we kept carefully hidden." Skitter of Metal's voice was barely a whisper. "How many ships do you have?" "In this system? About 400. In human space overall?" Chen paused thoughtfully. "Let's just say that your entire fleet represents less than 10% of our actual military capability." The Council Admiral felt his world crumbling around him. Everything the Council believed about humanity was wrong. Everything their strategy was based on was false. "This is impossible," he protested. "Our intelligence networks are the best in the galaxy. We have monitored your activities for centuries." "Yes, you have," Chen agreed. "And we have been monitoring your intelligence networks for just as long. Did you really think that a species capable of faster-than-light travel couldn't figure out how to detect crystalline spy devices and biological monitoring systems?" She leaned forward in her chair. "Every piece of information you gathered about humanity was carefully provided by us. We wanted you to underestimate our capabilities. We wanted you to feel confident about your ability to control us. We wanted you to make exactly the mistake you're making right now." On the sensor displays, more human ships were decloaking throughout the system. Vessels that had been invisible to the Council's most advanced detection systems were revealing themselves in a display of technological superiority that left the alien fleet stunned. "You wanted to see what humanity is capable of when pushed to the brink," Chen continued. "Very well. Consider this a practical demonstration. What followed was not a battle. It was a lesson in the difference between confidence and competence. Human weapon systems activated across the system, but instead of destroying the Council ships, they demonstrated their precision and power. Beams of coherent energy sliced through space, each one calibrated to disable rather than destroy. Council shields, which had been considered the finest defensive technology in the galaxy, collapsed instantly under the assault. The chittering Victory shuddered as its weapon systems went offline. Around it, the rest of the Council fleet found themselves similarly helpless. Not one ship had been destroyed, but all were completely powerless. How? Skitter of Metal whispered, staring at his useless controls. Physics, came a new voice. Dr. Elena Vasquez appeared on the communication screen next to Admiral Chen. Your shields work by deflecting or absorbing directed energy. Our weapons work by temporarily altering the fundamental constants of matter within a localized field. Your shields might as well be made of paper. The implications were staggering. If humans could manipulate fundamental forces like that, what else were they capable of? Dr. Vasquez seemed to read his thoughts. You're wondering about our other capabilities. Very well. Observe. Throughout the system, space itself seemed to shimmer and twist. Stars that had been visible in the distance suddenly appeared to move, their light bending in impossible ways as human ships manipulated gravitational fields with casual ease. Impossible, breathed the Zephyrian captain of a nearby council vessel. Gravitational manipulation on this scale should require the energy output of an entire star. It did, Dr. Vasquez replied calmly, until we figured out how to access zero-point energy directly. That breakthrough was made 87 years ago. We've had nearly a century to perfect the applications, but the most shocking revelation was yet to come. Across the galaxy, on every major communication network, the same broadcast began simultaneously. It was Dr. Vasquez again, but this time she was addressing not just the Council fleet, but every intelligent being in known space. Citizens of the galaxy, she began. For 3 centuries, humanity has observed and learned from galactic civilization. We have seen your achievements and your failures. We have studied your technologies and your societies. Today we share some of what we have learned. The broadcast showed images that no alien had ever seen before. Human installations throughout the galaxy that had been completely hidden from alien detection. Manufacturing facilities that dwarfed anything the Council knew existed. Research stations where human scientists worked on projects that pushed the boundaries of known science. We placed these facilities in star systems you never bothered to explore, Dr. Vasquez explained. In asteroid fields you considered worthless. Around stars you thought were too unstable to support technology. You never found them because you never thought to look. The display showed construction projects on a scale that made alien engineering look primitive. Artificial habitats the size of small moons. Industrial complexes that converted raw stellar energy into matter. Space-based research facilities where fundamental physics was being rewritten. But the most important thing we learned, Dr. Vasquez continued, was about you. We studied your societies, your governments, your military strategies. We learned your strengths and your weaknesses. We prepared countermeasures for every possible scenario. Admiral Chen took over the broadcast. The Galactic Council demanded our surrender. They threatened us with destruction if we refused to accept their control. They believed we were helpless primitives who could be easily intimidated. Her expression grew cold. They were wrong. We are not primitives, and we are certainly not helpless. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began in chaos and ended in surrender. Admiral Skitter of Metal's report had shattered every assumption the Council had held about humanity. As he described the impossible human fleet, their advanced weapons, and technologies that violated known physics, the Great Chamber filled with sounds of disbelief and growing panic. High Counselor Vextar's crystal form had dimmed to the darkest shade his species could produce. Around him, representatives from 11 other species struggled to process the magnitude of their miscalculation. 400 ships, whispered Counselor Reef Singer of the Depth Swimmers. In one system. How many more do they have? Unknown, Skitter of Metal replied grimly. Admiral Chen implied that their total fleet was far larger than what we observed. She also indicated that their most dangerous technologies were not deployed in the demonstration. The economic reports made the situation even worse. In the 3 days since the Kepler 442 incident, 6 more alien governments had declared bankruptcy. Trade routes that had operated for centuries were collapsing. Entire industries that depended on human technology or markets were shutting down. But it was the political consequences that truly terrified the Council leadership. News of humanity's demonstration had spread across the galaxy within hours. Species that had accepted Council authority for generations were suddenly questioning that authority. Some were openly demanding renegotiation of their agreements with the Council. The Spiral Federation, a collection of minor species that the Council had controlled for over 2 centuries, had just declared independence. The Outer Rim territories were in open revolt. Even some major council members were reconsidering their positions. "The entire galactic order is collapsing," reported Counselor Whisper of Distant Stars, its gaseous form swirling with patterns of desperation. "Humanity's demonstration has shown every species in the galaxy that the Council is not invincible." Counselor Deeproot of the Grove Tenders rustled his bark-like skin nervously. "We are receiving requests for separate negotiations from 17 different species. They want to establish direct relationships with humanity, bypassing the Council entirely." The implications were clear. The Galactic Council's power had been based on the belief that they were the strongest force in the galaxy. Humanity had destroyed that belief in a single afternoon. "We need to open negotiations immediately," declared Counselor Sharpcurrent of the Sky Dancers. "Every day we delay makes our position weaker." "Negotiations?" Vextar's crystal form flashed with bitter light. "What do we have to negotiate with? They have demonstrated military superiority. They control technologies we don't understand. Half the galaxy is already trying to ally with them instead of us." The truth was painful but undeniable. The Council was no longer negotiating from a position of strength. They were begging for mercy from a power they had foolishly chosen to antagonize. The call from Earth came 3 hours later. Admiral Chen appeared on the main display, speaking from what was clearly the command center of a massive space station. Behind her, holographic displays showed star charts that included systems the Council had never seen before. The message was clear. Humanity's reach extended far beyond what anyone had imagined. "High Counselor Vextar," Chen began formally. "The United Earth government is prepared to discuss terms for a new relationship between humanity and the galactic community." "Terms?" Vextar's voice was barely a whisper. "What terms?" Chen's expression was professional but cold. "First, the immediate and complete recognition of humanity as a sovereign power with full rights to expansion, trade, and self-determination. Second, the payment of reparations for the resources humanity was forced to expend preparing for a war we never wanted. Third, the formal apology of the Galactic Council for 3 centuries of condescension and attempted subjugation." The chamber erupted in protests from several council members, but Chen continued speaking over them. "Fourth, the establishment of new galactic governance structures that include humanity as an equal partner in all decisions affecting galactic civilization. Fifth, the immediate release of all restrictions on human technology and trade." "These terms are impossible," protested Counselor Reefsinger. "You're demanding the complete restructuring of galactic civilization." Chen's smile was not pleasant. "I'm demanding exactly what humanity offered the Council freely for 3 centuries. Partnership instead of domination, cooperation instead of control, respect instead of subjugation." She leaned forward in her chair. "The difference is that now you no longer have a choice in the matter." Dr. Vasquez appeared beside Chen on the display. "Perhaps a further demonstration would help clarify the situation," she said calmly. The display changed to show star charts of the galaxy. Hundreds of red dots appeared, marking locations throughout known space. As the council members watched in growing horror, they realized what they were seeing. "Human monitoring stations," Dr. Vasquez explained. "We have been watching all of you for centuries. Every major military installation, every research facility, every government center. We know the location of every significant asset belonging to every species in the Council." The red dots began blinking, indicating target locks. There were thousands of them, covering every important location in Council space. "We could end this war in a matter of hours," Dr. Vasquez continued. "Not through destruction, but through the selective disruption of your technological infrastructure. Your computers would stop working. Your communication networks would fail. Your power systems would shut down. Your transportation systems would cease to function." She paused to let the implications sink in. "Your civilizations would not be destroyed, but they would be reduced to pre-technological levels within days. Billions would die not from weapons, but from the collapse of the systems that keep your societies functioning." The display returned to Admiral Chen. "We don't want to do this," she said firmly. "Humanity has no interest in conquest or domination. We never did. All we ever wanted was to be accepted as equals in the galactic community." Her voice grew harder. "But if the Council chooses to continue this conflict, we will end it on our terms. The choice is yours. Accept our terms for peace, or face the consequences of your arrogance. The communication ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. High Counselor Vextar looked around at his fellow leaders. He saw defeat in every alien face, fear in every posture. The proud Galactic Council, which had ruled known space for over a millennium, had been reduced to helpless supplication in a matter of days. "We have no choice," he said finally, his crystal form flickering with patterns of surrender. "We accept their terms." The signing ceremony took place 1 month later on Nexus Prime, in the same chamber where the failed peace talks had begun. But everything was different now. The human delegation was no longer 3 people in simple uniforms. Admiral Chen arrived with a staff of 30, including diplomatic, military, and scientific advisors. Their uniforms bore new insignia that marked them as representatives of a major galactic power. The alien representatives, by contrast, seemed diminished. Their proud displays of authority looked hollow now that everyone knew humanity could disable their technology with ease. The document they signed was called the New Galactic Accord, but everyone understood what it really was: humanity's terms for allowing the Council to continue existing. Under the new agreement, humanity would be recognized as a co-equal partner in galactic governance. The old Council structure would be reformed to include human representation at every level. Most importantly, no species would ever again have the right to impose restrictions on another species' growth or development. As the signing ceremony concluded, Admiral Chen stood to address the assembled delegates. "Today marks the beginning of a new era in galactic civilization," she said. "An era based on mutual respect rather than enforced hierarchy. An era where all species have the right to reach their full potential." She paused, looking around the chamber at the alien faces that watched her with mixtures of respect, fear, and resentment. Humanity could have chosen domination. We could have used our technological advantages to impose our will on the galaxy, just as the Council tried to impose their will on us. But that is not who we are. Her voice grew softer but somehow more powerful. "We offered you friendship and you demanded our submission. We offered cooperation and you insisted on our subjugation. We showed you respect and you gave us condescension in return." The chamber was completely silent now. You could have had humanity as willing partners, eager allies, and grateful friends. Instead, your arrogance has earned you sullen compliance and watchful suspicion. We will honor this agreement, but the trust that could have been will never exist. Admiral Chen gathered her papers and prepared to leave. "You have learned what humanity is capable of when pushed too far. For your sake, and for the sake of galactic peace, I hope you never forget that lesson." As the human delegation filed out of the chamber, High Counselor Vextar remained at his position, staring at the documents that had just formalized the end of the old galactic order. Around him, his fellow council members sat in stunned silence, each contemplating the magnitude of what they had lost through their own arrogance.